Bonjour à tous.
Hello everyone. Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown has been out for several days now, and we wanted to take a moment to talk with you, to go over everything that's happened so far. A lot has happened. There have been plenty of questions raised by the player community, and we also encountered some launch issues, especially with the servers. We're aware of that. So we wanted to address it, talk about what's been happening, discuss the steps we're taking, and also give you an idea of what's coming very soon for Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. Regarding the launch of Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, we experienced some network issues, despite our efforts to put in place as many safeguards as possible to ensure things would go smoothly. I worked on the previous test drive game, TDU2, and back then we faced major network problems. I really didn't want to go through that again. So with Solar Crown, things are going better because players can access the game. Some had to try a few times, especially at the beginning, but they managed to get in. We had taken far more precautions than we did with the previous TDU, running a lot more tests.
Actually, we had beta phases set up specifically for that. Of course, they helped answer a lot of questions and we were able to fix a lot of things. I think the important point is that we made a lot of progress. There weren't as many issues as during the beta phases. But as we expected, we didn't anticipate having so many players. There are issues that only appear when a certain number of players are online, and that's probably what we couldn't foresee at that time. It's not so much that we were overwhelmed by success, because we were always prepared for a large number of players. But it did reveal problems that we couldn't detect before. So right now, that's what we're working on fixing. A lot of things will be coming with the week 1 patch, which is what we call it internally. It's essentially the patch that's coming very soon. It's going to address a lot of server-side issues, as Alain mentioned. And during maintenance, we've already been able to fix some things server-side. But now, we need to make bigger fixes that we call client-side correction. Those are issues in the game itself. So these are big changes that are coming soon. The closed beta definitely brought us a lot of valuable insights. But having a large number of players also had its own impact. Having so many players obviously brought us to a point where we had to address certain issues in real time. Issues that we only could see once we reached that stage. And there are things we've been able to fix on the server side, which is what you've likely noticed during the maintenance periods, or when there were spontaneous disconnections, those sorts of things. These are issues we continue to work on, and it will be an ongoing process. However, most of the problems will be addressed with the first major patch, which fixes over 300 bugs. These bugs range across different areas, but a lot of them focus on server issues, problems with saving your progress and things like that. These are major pain points, small but impactful issues that can be very frustrating, especially when they keep happening during your game sessions. It will be fixed with this first patch.
Since the game's release, we've been gradually improving the server side, which is crucial for the game step by step. But this patch will fix a lot of in-game issues and bugs, and at the same time, it will be synchronized with a major server update that will also resolve many connection problems.
It's really important to understand this is super important, that even though we have this huge patch, there's a delay before we can get it. It needs to go through testing, which is a major step, and it also has to be approved by the console manufacturers, obviously, for them to give us the green light. Of course, we want to deliver it to you as quickly as possible, but it has to be tested to ensure the highest quality. That's just part of the development process.
So the patch doesn't just come with bug fixes, there are also improvements to the game.
Of course. I think one of the biggest challenges right now is optimization. As you've noticed, there are some small performance drops. Initially, with this first patch, we'll mainly focus on all consoles and platforms, but the emphasis will be on PC. Overall, you can expect a better experience soon. A second patch will come a little later that will specifically address issues on the PS5. We know we are currently experiencing performance problems on the PS5, particularly with lower graphics quality. All of that will be included in a major patch for the PS5. Which is separate from this first patch because it's obviously much larger, more involved, and requires more testing. But it is coming, and it's coming soon as well.
It'll come fairly quickly after the first patch.
Yes, exactly.
This patch comes with bug fixes, but it also coincides with the launch of the new season,
That's right.
the first season of the Solar Crown line.
Exactly. As you can see, everyone was a bit hyped about the arrival of the season and the dates in the Solo Hotel, because those were the dates we had planned. So, as we mentioned, the patch actually contains more than we initially anticipated, and it specifically fixes some things related to the season. With the slight delay we have on the patch, we'll align the season launch with it, so when the patch arrives, the season will also start, along with the live events, the Solo Crown Live, which will kick off the Solo Crown competition. So, it's a small delay, and you'll see that, in the Solo Hotel, you'll need to take a little extra time and be patient to possibly win the new car.
Well, yes, to win a Solar Crown
Exactly.
Live. We've seen in the gameplay habits and feedback we've received from players that there's a somewhat frustrating aspect for some of them of always encountering other online players. We already noticed this phenomenon during the closed beta, where we made a change to the lobbies that allows players to validate the race immediately without having to wait. There was a long wait time, and players didn't want to wait for others and find themselves with players they weren't interested in racing with. So, we implemented this change, and it's in the game now. But we also have other modifications planned to further ease the ability for players to play the way they want.
Well, I think there are really things we want to maintain and others we want to evolve. I believe there are three main aspects. First, there's the end-of-life phase, moving the game toward this offline dimension where it can be delivered. Then there's the solo mode, as you mentioned, where we mainly want to focus on races because we know that the core gaming experience of TDU is, after all, racing. People join even though they enjoy free roam, etc., but to progress, they need to participate in races. So we want to make that experience as straightforward as possible. Thus, having a solo experience makes sense, and we want to offer that. On the other end, the third aspect is that we are still in an MMO, and we want to maintain that MMO dimension in free roam and in the hubs. This means fostering player interactions and continuing to encourage that.
If we want to do it in the races, of course, we'll have the option to wait for other players. It really depends on each player's preferred style of play. We need to allow that flexibility in TDU. If someone prefers to progress in races in a more solo manner, they should be able to do that, and we'll be able to facilitate that soon.
Playing with friends.
Playing with your group of friends, or really waiting for PvP in races. And in any case, there are game modes like Time Attack that are solo experiences.
There's Rocket, which is definitely multiplayer.
And then there will be the first season of Solar Crown Live, which is really PvP. We've also been asked whether the game will support crossplay. That's something we've considered since the early design stages of the game. It's not really a technical problem because technically the player data from different platforms, whether on PC or console, can be mixed fairly easily. The challenge lies more in respecting certain constraints, such as between consoles and PC. There are many factors we need to be mindful of. For now, we prefer to concentrate all our efforts on the server side to ensure that everything works well in the main game. And then we'll study the technical aspects of crossplay in more depth.
And you mentioned the idea of cross-platform. I know there's also an issue related to cross-region play that keeps coming up. If you have a friend in Canada and you live in Europe and want to play together, right now that's not possible. That's not something we've definitely shut down. It's just that there are technical constraints behind it. What we wanted was primarily to ensure competition by region and also to provide a fair play experience for players in the same region. For example, there will be a problem if you're playing in Europe against Americans. If you find yourself in the same race, you can be sure that you'll lag, and the racing conditions will be absolutely terrible. To ensure a really good experience, we prefer to keep people in the same region and compete in ranked matches and races simply to have a cool experience for everyone, limited to specific regions. To create large regions in which players are. This isn't a debate that's completely closed. We may allow cross-region play, but it might create sessions where players are isolated to play together. They won't disturb others, and of course, they won't have access to ranked mode. These are things we're thinking about, but right now that's not the priority. However, you see the principle, because I think it's important to understand that our goal, like with crossplay, is always to present something of high quality, and to understand its constraints, making sure that it works in our regions. And then, regarding smaller constraints like that, of course, we'll address them.
Well, because connections are relatively fast now.
Of course.
But we realize that when we connect continents,
Yes.
we quickly experience lag. We've tested it, and yeah, it's better not to do it for now because
Well, it's not
the
only...
experience isn't enjoyable.
Plus, it's one of the issues you encountered at the beginning of at launch. There were servers that were a bit too far apart, which led to response issues. And that creates problems with, well, simply server performance. And you were getting stuck in certain areas, etc. So we had to redivide these regions, and in the end, you see, it's issues that causes many other small problems. And that's why we shouldn't rush these subjects. We need to think carefully about them, and it's always to provide the best possible experience. So it's really important for you to understand that we're trying to have a stable game, and now we're going to try to move to the next level, which means making the game better and better by putting building blocks together to construct a massive castle.
It's true that we've received quite a bit of feedback on the AI in the game, particularly regarding difficulty. How it works in TDU is that when you first encounter the AI, during the onboarding phase, for example, they're not very strong. Everyone has noticed this. I think they're quite easy to beat. We have a ranking system that assesses the player's level, and as you progress in races, when you're playing against a lot of AI in a solo mode, the difficulty of the opponents in the races adjusts to the player's level. So when you're in first place, because it's easy at the beginning and you keep finishing first, eventually you end up facing expert level AI, and it becomes much more challenging to win.
In fact, yeah, that's exactly it. We essentially do the same thing as what happens in ranked matches. It's an ELO score, and you're racing against the AI based on your position in the race.
Yeah, the ELO system is the ranking system we use in chess, for example.
It's the same system.
It allows us to assess the level of all players relative to one another quite simply and quickly.
Exactly.
The stronger you are, the fewer points you earn when you win against someone weaker, and vice versa. It's a system used in chess, very smart, that quickly evaluates the differences in players' levels. This is a system we use for ranked matches among players to evaluate player levels and help them progress through the leagues. But it's also a system we use somewhat behind the scenes to assess AI levels in relation to players.
Because the issues are relatively the same, we want to provide a challenging experience for players that's tailored to their level. It's exactly what we do in multiplayer, providing an experience suited to each player's level. We wouldn't match diamonds with bronzes. That would make absolutely no sense. Similarly, we want to make sure you're playing against AI that always keep things interesting. So that there's a challenge. But a challenge, in my opinion, is the goal.
Yes, that's right. Although maybe they're a bit too challenging.
Right now we have a slight balancing issue, but it's mainly because there are many aspects of the AI we can improve. First, they're extremely aggressive, which makes them ultra-competitive, especially because they'll bulldoze through the starting grid and dominate corners, as they want to pass and stay in their lanes. You've seen that they don't pay attention to you, because they're focused on being the best they can be. This is particularly true at the expert level.
That can be a bit hardcore.
It can be a bit hardcore. Currently, there's a parameter we've dialed back at first because we wanted to ensure our AI performs well, so we kept it. This is something that will be corrected gradually over the patches. As we've communicated, there's an initial patch that will adjust the balancing parameters to simplify the difficulty of the master AI. But not just that, all AI will be rebalanced. We'll also be looking at aggressiveness, which will be adjusted too. What's really funny, and probably the most frequently reported issue, is that some cars, like a Bugatti at full speed, are taking a corner perfectly. This is because we have a parameter in the AI that allows them to say, okay, you can take this turn at maximum speed with a perfectly allowed drift angle. No human on Earth can do that at that speed with their eyes. So we've basically created unbeatable AI, and we're sorry about that.
There you go.
I think now it's easier to go the
I've
other
seen
way.
players beat them.
There are AIs, so we have players who are robots.
machines.
That's something else. They're machines. And then there's also the perception. Many people reported that there are 2 CV passing us.
I've seen that, it's true.
While we're in an Audi TT, it feels strange.
It feels strange. I was in an
course.
Alpine, but it was boosted, you know, the 2CV. It was upgraded.
Because there are things made for players that shouldn't apply to the AIs because, well, it's fun for the players. But right now, the AIs, well, they're trying to be competitive. And they take just about every vehicle. That's also something we'll be working on.
Yeah, it's true that the upgrades on the 2CVs are crazy. They're really intense, mental.
Yeah.
So it is weird to be overtaken by a 2CV. But you can upgrade it in the game. The player can upgrade their 2CV to make it much more powerful than the... But this is an important topic, because the players who played in the first days of the game, well, we observed that the first players had what we call metas, which are cars that are clearly better than the others in their category. So, well, that's an important point. Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown is an MMO, and as an MMO, we will need to make adjustments to the game. Sometimes we call it nerfs, things like that.
Buffs.
Buffs, exactly. We'll rebalance the game. It's important to communicate this to our players, since it's part of the life cycle of MMOs. At some point, certain cars will be stronger, and after an upgrade, they might be less strong, or better balanced compared to other cars. So, that talks about the cars as they are in the game, but also the upgrades that might make some cars too powerful. So this will be part of the changes made over the course of the game's updates.
Of course.
Game updates are super important. It's a crucial concept in MMOs to have a game that adapts based on what the player experiences in the game.
And we're not against the principle of meta. It's also because the experience is challenging and because people are looking for tricks to win against the AI or other players. Which is really interesting. It's exactly what we wanted to create. Players who are so engaged that they search for what the metagame is. However, it needs to be shaken up.
It needs to be.
It needs to change, be corrected, modified and evolve over time. Maybe sometimes the Audi TT will change categories. Or maybe it will have slightly less powerful upgrades one season. Maybe next time it will be for the Bentley. We might also nerf the AWD because we know that in all racing games, AWD performs better. Center differential, 4-wheel drive on the starting grid, it's really significant.
It grips well.
It really performs well on the corner exits. They face fewer constraints in the game. Perhaps the race restrictions also need to change a bit to allow for races between RWD and AWD to improve the balancing within the races themselves. There are plenty of options. We're not closing any doors,
It's
and I
essential
think
we need to make changes. Just like with the Paladins.
it's like the Paladins, and that will change every season, of course.
Yeah.
Plus, we're getting more and more cars, so there will be new balancing.
So, following the problems we had with the servers at the game's launch, well, we've corrected a lot of issues and hopefully we won't have any more. We've fixed all the network problems, but that said, for the players who were there on the first days, it was complicated and we want to offer them compensation.
Yeah, well, a nice compensation. I think that right now we don't exactly know what we want to do. We're still discussing it among ourselves. The goal is, what takes time right now is not so much to give it to you, but to provide you with something that matches what happened with the servers. Of course, it won't be 1 million solo coins. We know that would just ruin your experience. We're looking for something that makes sense in a TDU context, so that's coming. And then, well, there's also content that's coming. Right now, we're only at the first season, and the first season hasn't even started yet. So there are going to be a lot of things happening in the first season. Live events, the Solo Crown Live, so a lot of content is coming. And then behind that, well, Ibiza.
Ibiza in season 2. The arrival of Ibiza, season 3. We've already talked about that in the last interview on the last video we made. Season 2, Ibiza. Season 3, the clan war. Season 4, the casino, the return of the casino. There's a lot of content coming to the game, so that's cool.
And we're really happy to see that a lot of players are currently having a lot of fun with TDU. And we wanted to thank you because it's really cool to see that you're playing the game the way we imagined it. It's truly amazing. I've seen some incredible screenshots and gameplay sessions. I've seen some streamers I follow regularly. They don't know this, but they're just monsters at driving, and they try hard every day. It's exactly the image of TDU, the cruising that's happening.
It's really satisfying to find that in the game. We had connection problems, that's for sure, at the launch of the game. But thankfully, there are quite a few players who managed to play a lot. And what I felt is that they really loved the game. They spent a lot of time in it, truly experiencing natural progression, a lot of enjoyment, and a strong desire to advance. But also for those who know, at least from their comments, they found that test drive unlimited spirit again. And honestly, that's part of our goals. And we at Kyloton are very proud to have succeeded in recreating that feeling. That sense of being in a TDU, because it's a somewhat unique sensation. It's truly rewarding to see players feel that and love it.
And the experience will only get better as the seasons go by. We'll gradually add more.
Yes, we also have quite a few updates and improvements planned for the game, but in fact, we're already working on what comes next. We're listening and seeing what the players expect. We have some surprises too, because there are things we want to add to the game. We're not going to recreate TDU 2, of course. We're going to improve the game with things that already existed. But we'll enhance those aspects and add things that didn't exist before. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that and testing everything in the game.
And there are things that aren't even announced yet that will be added over time, like small quality of life improvements, etc. So that's cool.